What's up friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to talk about books. I've read 18 books this year, but instead of going into each book separately, I thought of just talking about the biggest lessons that I've got out of the books itself. If you're curious to which books I've read this year, then you can find them normally right now on the screen, so take a look for yourselves. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Right, lesson number one is that if you want to build a successful life, or a purposeful life, you better take a look at your habits. If you're a little bit into the self-development kind of industry or the productivity industry, then you probably heard of James Clear's Atomic Habits. It teaches you how to build good habits and break bad habits. However, this is not a book I've read this year, it's a book I've read last year and I've already made a video out of it. So if you're interested in that one, you can find it right here on screen probably somewhere. The two books this year that actually taught me more about habits are Daily Rituals by Mason Curry and High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. These books don't really talk about how to build good habits and break bad habits like Atomic Habits does, but it rather goes into some of the most important habits from people that have shown to be successful and have shown to work towards their dreams. For instance, in Daily Rituals is basically an overview of 160 creative people from the past, like Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Charles Darwin, Victor Hugo, all different kinds of creative person from the past, and it basically summarizes each of their habits. And I think it's really interesting to look at and to maybe try out for yourself. In High Performance Habits, it's actually focused on 6 habits from successful people, namely the habits of clarity, necessity, productivity, influence, courage I think was also in there. And these books basically showed me that if you want to build a successful life, or if you want to live the way that you have envisioned it for yourself, then you have to look first at habits and the routines that you're doing right now, because they truly are the building blocks of what you want to achieve in later life. Because of the reason that simply habits are automatic actions that you perform without thinking. So if you know that I need to do these and these actions and these steps to get to my goal, and you even get to automate them by performing habits, then it will step by step become more easy to get there. The second lesson that I've learned from the books I've read this year is the importance of rest and sleep. And this is one that really truly hit home because I tend to be a workaholic and I tend to not take enough breaks and take time off for myself. And I think this year has clearly been a year in which I was able to realize how important and amazing it is to take rest from time to time, or to spend time in creativity instead of always in deep work. But mainly 2 books that have shown me that importance are Rest by Alex Pang and Why We Sleep by Professor Dr. Matthew Walker. The last one has also had a TED talk about the subject. I'll link to it in the description if you want to watch it. It's really interesting. Basically, in the first book, Rest from Alex Pang, he talks about that if you want to be productive and if you want to get work done, then rest needs to be a crucial part of your productivity system. Because if you just work, obviously one day you'll just crash into a wall, get into a burnout, and it's just not sustainable in the long term. So throughout the book, he gives several kinds of studies which show the importance of restful productivity, and also some tips and tricks to try out for yourself. Why We Sleep is basically like, wow. I have known for a while how important sleep is, but this book really hit home because the book basically shows you that sleep is linked to every function into your body, like your immune system, your hormonal system, your concentration, your cognitive system. Everything is linked with the amount of sleep, and just getting getting the sufficient amount of sleep in is so crucial to your health, but also to your mind and other things like that. The book has a lot of studies in it and very interesting topics, but it has been written in a way that it's very understandable, especially for people who might not have any scientific background in the subject of sleep. The third lesson I've learned from the books I've read this year is to feed your mindset. What you consume, you become. So we've already had some books on habits, we had some books on science, we had some books on psychology, and these books mainly were like philosophy. Like I've been reading The Daily Stoic, There's Never Anything But the Present by Alan Watts, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. These were all books that were talking about mindset and how to take care of yourself and to find balance. Because truly, I I've noticed, and I really believe it for myself now, is that everything starts with mindset. If you don't believe you can achieve anything, then you won't achieve it. I think that's a quote from Confucius in which he said, like, those who believe he can and those who believe he can't, they are both usually right. So it's basically it starts with mindset, because it starts with thoughts, and thoughts accumulate into actions, and actions accumulate into habits, and habits accumulate into behavior, and your behavior will ultimately determine where you will end up in life. So many practices also have been explained to me in these books, like some meditational practices, but also a way to totally reshape your way of thinking, maybe in the view of death, or in the view of suffering and pain, or in the view of when things just don't go the way you want them to go. So yeah, I would definitely recommend reading some of these books, or maybe just all of them. Lesson 4 is to become financially literate. I don't know about you, but up to recently, I didn't have any formal training into economy. I didn't know how the economy worked. I didn't know anything about finances. I didn't know anything about investing and anything. But last year, I started to read some financial books like Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki and I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And this year I continued to trend to learn more. So that's why I looked at some other books. And this year the books that I've read are The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, Your Money or Your Life by Vicky Robin, and The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. The Psychology of Money basically goes over how to deal with money and how to treat money, because I think a very famous quote out of the book is like, it's one thing to know how to make money, or one thing how to become rich, but it's another thing to stay rich. Because a lot of people who suddenly get a lot of money in their lives, maybe they win the lottery or they hit the jackpot somewhere, and before you know it, after 6 months they end up being even in a worse financial state than they were before winning that lottery or that jackpot. So the book goes more into the psychology and the behaviorisms on how to deal with money. Your Money or Your Life, however, is a 9-step program to financial independence, but it also goes into this behaviorism and like how your relationships should be with money. Like, you have a lot of people who just chase money to have the money, but it's more about money being a medium to the things that you want to achieve or accomplish in life. And then last one that I've read, The Intelligent Investor, is Benjamin Graham is probably maybe the most successful investor that has ever existed. If you're familiar with Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham was his mentor. So everything Warren Buffett does nowadays and what he has done throughout his life, he learned it from Benjamin Graham. So it's definitely not an easy book. It's very thick and there's a lot of language that you have to learn, because it's a very specific jargon to the investors world. But it's a really a must read if you want to learn more about investing. Basically, if you don't learn how to deal with money, or how to relate to money, or how to think about money, then basically you will chase money for the rest of your lives instead of the money chasing after you. And lastly, the last lesson that I've learned is basically to learn from others, which is basically the thing you do when you read books. So all the books that I've read this year are applicable to this, because you read a book to learn from others and to learn from someone's expertise, so you don't have to go through that time. So basically, the whole concept with this is that instead of going through the motions and having to do all the steps by yourself until you master a subject, let's learn from someone who already went through it, already mastered it, and has expertise in this specific subject you want to know more about, and to just learn from them, to have an open mind, because they've showed probably that they know how to deal with it, so why wouldn't you learn from them? So basically, don't waste your time trying to do anything by yourself, but look for the people who have already done it before you and take the time and be open-minded enough to learn from them. Yeah, I think it's a quote from David Goggins out of his book Can't Hurt Me, which I read last year, is that always be willing to become the idiot of the class again. Always be willing to get back to square one, or to step one, and to learn from someone else, because there's a lot of things to learn in this world. Reading books is a great opportunity to learn and to grow as a person and to keep your mind open and just to make progress in life. So I would just really recommend starting reading books, and you could certainly start reading the books that I have read this year if one of them really interests you. I'm curious to knowing if you have learned any lessons from the books that you've read this year. If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe link to the book explicitly as well, so I can look it up myself. That was it for this video. If you've gotten any value out of it, don't forget to like and to consider subscribing to the video, and don't forget the little bell notification so you get notified when a new video of mine is released. Bye bye.